Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Welcome to another episode on the KazriofHecate.com channel. Today is Saturday, 5:30 Pacific time, so it must be time for Yagoda to be back. This week, we're going to talk about numerology. Got a banner for that. And before I do that, I will ask everyone to please like and subscribe, even though it is funny when people ask you to like something when you just arrived. Maybe you don't have to like, but if you aren't subscribed and you want to, I've made it into triple digits. I think I have 101 the last time I looked. That's exciting. And comments that you make in the chat, in the live chat we're watching, and if you're watching on the replay, we read those comments as well. So we're going to start with Yagoda doing a basic introduction on what numerology is. And I have some banners right here because this is numerology with Yagoda. We will cover the idea behind numerology and the basic meaning of the numbers. And then she'll talk about the concept of the birth card from the numerology perspective and where to look for numbers and karmic vibrations. And then towards the end, we'll do some mini readings for those of you who are in the chat. So take it away, Yagoda. You can maybe introduce yourself a little bit because everybody's new. A lot of people know who you are, and a lot of people are seeing you for the first time.
Yeah, also those who don't know me, I'm Yagoda, and I'm an astrologer, a tarot reader, a spiritual teacher. I also dabble in numerology and human design. I'm generally a holistic healer, and I use whatever I can to help those who come to me be guided when it comes to their decisions and when they find themselves in doubt. And we have been kind of having a weekly regular session here with Kazri. We already covered the basics of human design, basics of numerology, basics of tarot, basics of astrology, and we're doing basics of numerology this week. And in the future, I think we'll delve into like more details regarding those subjects because, the one issue we've had is that there's just so much information that an hour is not really enough to cover all that. So we're kind of starting from the perspective of a complete beginner and just giving you the basic rundown for those who really don't feel like they know much, so they can understand the importance of these esoteric cards in their lives and how they can be used. And we're going to start from the most basic core concepts, moving into more details in the future. We're also, of course, open to any questions that you might have, because sometimes people have like those really complex questions that end up, into a lot of material that I can end up talking about for a long time. And we also do mini readings for people who want to have an example of how this works in their lives, and also for the viewers to see an example of how this can be applied to them, because I also offer private readings for those who want to come to me for a session. And I also run a podcast on my YouTube channel. Currently, I'm analyzing a Vedic astrology book that actually kind of is like a Bible of the time, and contains a lot of information about the spiritual nature of the universe. So even if you're not into astrology, I recommend that you tune into that podcast, because it has like a lot of interesting, again, philosophical ideas about everything as the nature of creation, and it's very deep and very profound and very accurate, despite the book being so old and translated from like ancient Indian languages. But let's move on to this week, and the first core idea behind numerology and why it is so important, and why it has taken a grasp of like so many people having an active interest in it. That's because our universe, which is something that people who are interested in science and physics know, at a quantum level, is numerical. And it's like an infinite complex code. We think that when we invented technology was something new, but in fact, all the technology that we ever invented as human beings is based on nature and the nature of the universe, the quantum nature of the universe. The same way that, for example, our airplanes look like birds for a reason, because we try to imitate nature to be able to take ourselves further with technology. So the idea behind numerology is such that everything in existence is coded, and nothing is really a coincidence, which is something that esoteric art teach you, like in general, basically, that you find out through all of these means that nothing was really an accident down to your name or down to your location. That everything is kind of predestined and preordained, and numerology is one of those ways of being able to perceive and decode the universe. The one thing I kind of would like to warn people against is to be maybe calm when it comes to approaching these tarot cards, because just like astrology or tarot to an extent, all this spiritual stuff is something you can end up drowning in. And with numerology, when you go too far and you're too too obsessed, you kind of end up like Jim Carrey in this movie number 22 or 23 or whatever. There was this movie with him once when he saw numbers everywhere and he was going nuts. But it turned out he was right at the end anyway. But did you see a point that, just because you understand that everything is coded and, there are zeros, ones, and, infinite symbols all around us, that doesn't mean that you should, kind of panic about it. It's just something you should approach calmly and pour over it when you want to understand something. So the idea also is that numbers have vibrations, as in just like words. By the way, letters can be coded into numbers too. Just like words and numbers have a meaning, and they have a power and they have a vibration. And your birth date, your birth hour, all these vibrations, all these numbers, your name also vibrates with a number, and this energy is kind of like a magnet that pulls your soul when you incarnate, and these two are compatible. And so in a way, your soul also expresses itself through these numbers, through the many ideas, the main details behind what kind of numbers you can have in your life. So in a way, it shows you the divine side of mathematics. I guess that's how I would call it. The divine side of scientific genius of creation, basically. Now, I'm just wondering if I should do the next point within this one, or I should. No, I think I'll just still keep with one, because basically you can have several types of numbers when you try to find out about your life. Just to look at the basics. The one you probably heard the most of, if you are a numerology rookie, is what we like to call the life path number, and that is basically something that's derived from the day that you were born. You add the month, the year, and the day when you were born, and that gives you your unique life path number. And that is, accurate to an extent, but, the problem with that is that it also applies to every single person that's born on the globe during the same day. So if there's someone who was born the same day, they're going to have the same life path number, right? That's why we also have other numbers in numerology, such as the expression number, the personality number. And you can actually find a lot of online calculators. All you have to do is type into Google expression number calculator, and you're gonna find these websites that offer you all those possibilities. And I'm actually going to link my favorite one because it has all the 4 core numbers. There's the expression destiny number, there's the heart's desire or a soul urge number, or personality number, and you will find that somehow all those things, they create a unique mix of who you are. They make you. And also, what's important is that life path number is based exclusively on your birth date, as in it's just numerical from the calendar. But all the other numbers, the one that I'm just putting in the comments right now, they are based also on your name, on the calculation of your name from numbers. So what's important here is, especially for women, when you get married and when you change your name, your vibration is gonna change. That's why so many women, they can have a better or worse after marriage if they change their name. If you're, some people, they talk about it, right? Or when they take like a name with a hyphen, sometimes you take a hyphen for like both partners, right? So that a man and a woman both have their name, together, or the woman just takes the husband's last name as the second part of her name. Personally, I didn't change my name at all after marriage, and I'll tell you why in a second. Because that's also, responsible here for making a conscious choice. But sometimes, people are surprised that, oh my God, I just feel like I'm a different person. And the reason for that is that you changed, you live your basic identity, and so you vibrate differently. And so some people will end up, feeling better, when they return to their basic name as a result. Or some people just really hate their name from birth. It really does happen, right? That your parents name you, and they don't always do a good job. You don't always vibrate well or resonate well with the name that you receive at birth. And some people really spend their lives wanting to change their name because they want to feel like it's more themselves, and that can happen as well. Like, for example, I kept mine because, see, my name adds up to an 11, and I'm a life path 11 too. So basically, my parents kind of, I lucked out. They named me ideally perfectly in sync with my life path number. So I'm not going to change that because that's going to, help me. Yeah, and I'm noticing that we have some comments. Actually, I didn't notice because I was into the.
Yeah, I was sending you a little private comment to say we could acknowledge. I always love to. Chaley is here. She's one of our regular viewers. Good to see you.
Nice to see you.
We're doing really well. And her comment is that her twin and she have the same life path, of course, and soul urge numbers, which I guess soul. I haven't heard of a soul urge number. I've heard of a soul number. And she's in Utah. She reminds us.
Yeah, a soul urge number is otherwise called a heart's desire number, and the link that I sent, it contains calculations for that. So it's part of the core 4 that I mentioned, basically. Yeah, and twin flame or sibling. Yeah, but see, there you go. Sometimes those relationships. That's what I'm talking about. Is that the biological family blood bonds are sometimes, more. They create more discord than meeting someone from a different family biologically, but you have the same, numbers, so you have the same code, you have the same DNA, so you're more actually similar than maybe your parents sometimes, right? Like some kids, they don't turn out like their parents at all, right? And it's just the way it is, because you're different. Like my parents both work in physical fields, my father was a sports teacher, my mother was a physical therapist, so they both were more similar to each other. And me, with my spiritual interests, I'm completely, out of left field, And sometimes you are just different as a kid, and you just find that twin flame vibration with somebody else.
Yeah, and I'll insert a comment that it's interesting. There's biology, and then there's environment when you're raised with someone. But too, there's astrology going on. There's numerology. There's palmistry. There's all the different lenses, and it's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, very sadly, palmistry is, I have to admit, the one esoteric art that I'm just not very familiar with. I'm not gonna lie that I'm just, I don't, when I use my hands, I do Reiki, because when I start using my hands, I kind of automatically open up a psychic channel. Like right now, I start to raise them, and I start to feel coming, and I have to hide them because they're really sensitive. And I'm just not even gonna try to do this too much because it's gonna start coming out. And so when it comes to palmistry, you have to kind of have logic, just like with astrology, it's a system. Certain lines mean certain things. There's the headline, the heart line, and there are all these details. Like all the tiniest lines on your hands, they also have a meaning, and you have to learn it, just like everything else. You have to learn the theory to be able to do it well. And my channeling abilities with my hands just become overpowering, and my brain can't enter it. So I feel like I'm kind of blocked for this way of using my hands for that reason, because my intuition takes over. So I unless something changes, I don't think I'll be able to have a whole class on palmistry because of that. But some people that I know from India, they are just so good at it. Like they understand every single tiny line, how it means something on which part of your hand. They are able to predict the kind of life that you get. It's really fascinating. Shaylee says my hands get sensitive at, I don't know what FI is, but my hands are very sensitive. Maybe it was just a typo.
Maybe there you go.
Oh, not at times, exactly. I'm also never thought of that. Yeah, according to Vedic astrology, there is one lunar mention that is responsible for healing gifts in the hands. That in tropical, in the system that we have, the one I use, the tropical one, that lunar mention is in the constellation of Libra. So if you have any Libra planets, Shaylee, you may have this lunar mention. For example, I have my Jupiter there, and it's like my ascendant lord, and it's in the 12th house. When the 12th house is kind of this kind of healing dream state. And so what do you end up with? Someone who is able to abundantly give Reiki energy, almost feeling like you're in a trance, That's how it works for me. But generally, this lunar mention is responsible for being healing through your hands, whether that's, physical massage or something like that, or it just gives you power to have skill in your hands. Some people with this, actually, they are good illusionists or magicians, because you have to be able to move your hands fast to, deceive the public and do your trick at the same time. So when they have it in a different house, different than the 12th house, less spiritual one, maybe something more mercurial, people are going to have talent with that. But the way this works with the 12th house is that when I really get into channeling something, I feel like time stops. I don't know how much time passes. Like when I was channeling live at the Sanctum in Portland, there was a timer, because everyone only had a limited number of time to be
7 minutes. Yeah,
exactly. And so what I did is that I prepared music, and I would just close my eyes, and I would just really float away. And then when the ringer was on, I didn't even notice 7 minutes passed. And try to sit by yourself doing nothing for 7 minutes. That's hard, right? You get distracted. As human beings, we are so addicted to our phones. We're just clicking all the time. We don't we don't really sit in silence doing nothing. And when you really get into the psychic state, meditative state with the 12 house planets, you forget time. It falls away. Shelley says, I don't have any Libra placements, but I have heavy 7th house. Yeah, there has to be Libra for you to have the same lunar dimension. But generally, the lunar dimensions that are responsible for those kind of psychic abilities are ruled by the moon, because the moon can have this intuitive ability. So in the modern tropical system, they would put some of your chart if it's in Gemini, Libra, or Aquarius. This is where you can find those lunar dimensions. Not everyone has them, but they are the ones with the most psychic abilities. One of the most famous spiritual teachers of our time, Teal's one, she's an Aquarius moon, and she has her main moon lunar dimension in the one ruled by the moon. And she was born with those like really heavy psychic abilities since a kid. I would say even more than I do. Like with me, I can focus on something material and kind of disconnect. I'm very sensitive, but I can kind of tune in and out. And with her, it was kind of so overwhelming that she couldn't connect with reality, because she ends up seeing it all around her, which is something that can happen when your moon is there, which is the main lunar dimension of your whole life. The moon is the basic mind state. So when your basic mind state is so tuned in with those lunar dimensions, you just end up kind of dissociating the barrier between this physical world and something else, and you cannot have control over it. Luckily for me, I do. So I was able, to do things like graduate from an economical degree, but also, do the whole spiritual thing if I have to. However, I feel that as you age, the spiritual field kind of overtakes you more and more, because your abilities grow and they end up consuming you. It's very rare to be born with this at birth, to just feel like you're consumed with it by default. It does happen, but even if it's more light, you just feel like you can't really ignore it over time. I don't see Chilling having any more comments really, so I'm not gonna, reply to that. Like, I'm trying to get back on track here because we had a lot of questions, and I kind of, was sidetracked because I wanted to reply to you guys, and I'm wondering if what I'm gonna say next is gonna be number 2 or still number 1.
Yeah, we covered the idea behind numerology, or are we going to go into the basic meaning? I guess you'll go basic meaning of the numbers and go through each.
Yeah, I'm just thinking ready for that, if I want to say something more, because I kind of would like to say something more about the whole expression, destiny, and soul urge numbers. I'm gonna actually use my chart to kind of give you an example of how that can blend in your chart, and then maybe when I do mini readings, I can also do it for whoever is in the comments, because I want to show you basically how these character traits can blend in a personality. So for example, my life path number is 11, but my expression and the ordinance number is 3, right? And so here you have an 11 that expresses itself as a 3, where the 3 is ruled by Jupiter. And here some life path 11s, they have more heavy Saturnian energies. For example, one of them is ex-President Obama. He's in 11, because these are like very powerful vibrations. And if I remember correctly, I was actually checking him up once, and he had this heavy Saturnian energy, and that can make someone a very good politician, working for the masses. But Jupiter is more so a spiritual teacher, or maybe even a creative in some situations. So you can see how here the expression of the 11th, that's a more psychic number, expresses itself through teaching or through a more uplifting vibrations. Meanwhile, when somebody else with an 11 can be more Mercurial Saturnian, they can do more things like business or politics, for example. So just wanted to interject that, and then I'll tell you more when I look at Chile. Do you see something, Kesri? Because I don't know.
I was going to remind you that if there is a visual that's helpful, you can do a screen share and put something up, but maybe there's not. But or if you want me, or if you'd want me to pull something up, then I could screen share something. I didn't pull up the link that you put in the chat. I could pull that up.
Yeah, I'm just thinking if there's something that is useful, and I can think of only one image, actually. I'm gonna send you this link privately, Kasri, and you can put that up on the screen. And it basically shows you or kind of in the spirit of the whole basic, idea behind numerology. It shows you how these numbers that I just gave you, it's a link, I hope you can open it, how these numbers are calculated, because the website that I sent, the link that I sent is a ready calculator, it's already kind of like prepared like an instant recipe, so you don't really have to think much. But if you're wondering, well, how was this number changed and where did it come from, right? this is kind of shows you the origin of how these things are collected. If you Google it, there are techniques to do it. I use the online search engine because it's just easier. That's what we have the internet for, right? To make it simpler and to be able to do it kind of more mechanically. But if you're wondering, well, where did she pull this from? Well, I didn't pull it from nowhere. There is a, oh yeah, there you go. Kasri is now showing it. There's like a whole system where, as you can see, the letters are assigned a numerical value and you kind of count it together, basically. And there are different ways, different variations. In some systems, you skip certain vowels or you skip the consonants, and that gives you different results, basically. And quite frankly, there's no one definitive source about when was this invented. This is a very ancient system, probably going back to again like astrology, going back to like the birthplace of humankind itself. There is no one good source that says, oh, this person invented it 200 years ago. There is no saying that. Maybe we can also go look at how long we have been using this kind of alphabet. But even when people had different languages, different alphabets, they also had their own way of doing numerology with their own sound. And also just because
True.
the sound is
yeah, other than it's funny because they don't even call it numerology. My name is balanced with my birth date according to the Kabbalarian Society, which one day I was, because I paid for like the name recommendation. So when I changed my name, and as I was counseling, because you can get, you talk to them voice to voice, and I used the word numerology, and she said, well, no, it's not numerology. Our system uses mathematics, because the founder of that organization, Albert J. Parker, I believe is his name, was born in the late 1800s, and he founded it in like 1931. It became a nonprofit, and they're based in Vancouver, Canada. And they do have several different things, but the way he came up with it was he studied a bunch of different religions and systems, looking for the answer to why because his mother suffered really greatly, and she was a really pious religious woman. And he thought, and most religions say, well, yeah, you're going to suffer this time, next life, like, in the afterlife or next time, it's that, like, that's why. And he's like, that doesn't seem right. And so he sort of came, in his path of like searching for this, found that numerology was what really, or in my mind, I call it numerology, the numbers and any system. Yeah. A is 1, B is 2. And like the Spanish alphabet's different, but like whatever the order of the letters are, you do that. And that's the system that looks at the vowel total. I think they call that the spirit number, is separate from the overall total, which also has a meaning. But enough of us on the side about that.
No, it's okay, but it's very helpful you said that, because I just think it's very true that all these languages, especially as someone coming from from Poland, when there are people in Poland have all these like little letters. When it's kind of like with Spanish or French, you add like a small accent to an A or an E, and you just can include that because that would defeat the purpose of universality. So basically, when there is an accent, you just kind of remove the accent and act like the accent is not there. And that kind of can be funny, because some last names in Poland, they have like 3 or 4 different letters with accents on them, and you just, mine doesn't, so I'm lucky in a way. But some people, like you said, they are Spanish or whatever nationality, and they have that.
Yeah, and it depends on if it looks at it differently. Because in Spanish, I think maybe, it's been a long time since I studied, but maybe CH is its own like letter, CH together or something. There's different things. So they have, it's sort of A through Z, but there's different combinations. And so in that language, you would just, again, start with the first one is 1 and so forth. And I think you're talking about, when you talk about being 11, in the Kabbalarian system, 11 is just a number like anything else, and it's 1 and 1, it's 2. So they just look at 1 through 9. And I know there are systems that have values higher than that. I know I really resonate with 28, since that's my birth date. And of course our alphabet doesn't go that high. So there's not like a letter that has that value, but 2 and 8 is 10, which is 1. So anyway, and we could, that's maybe a good thing to include. I'm going to stop sharing that. Does that make sense? Maybe.
I just want to show you like the origin behind that. And I think it's very true what you said, that sometimes you have, well, not really, not numbers or letters, but consonants. And the consonant is about taking 2 letters and pronouncing them differently. And that can be done in so many languages in so many ways. And again, historically, I bet that they also had different consonants, or maybe the letters look different in different alphabets, right? But the pronunciation is still very similar. Like, let's say that you have a Greek alphabet or even a Russian one. There are differences like in order, or maybe how something is written, but the pronunciation of it, a lot of the letters that are singular or like just separated sounds, like in this table, they are kind of more or less the same. So that also shows you, the universality of the system. And also, I very strongly believe that when it comes to spiritual calculations, we should always take into account that we are doing that for this human life. And maybe if you were born 2000 or 20,000 years ago, you would have a different life. Maybe there would be a different system back then, and so you would consult whoever was in whatever hut they were living back then, in a different lifestyle. But right now, you have to look at the fact that the numerology that you're going to apply is applying for this incarnation that you have right now. And I think a lot of people kind of try to go back in time and reach for the past that never was. Why? Because if you were someone else in the past, you were someone else in the past life, you were not the same person. It was a different experience, And so you always have to contextualize the human experience in the context of this incarnation right now, because that's why you're learning esoteric arts, to be able to make the most out of this incarnation. And I think that it leads to a lot of people call like spiritual bypassing, and they're like, oh, well, I know numerology, I know astrology, so I can just, sit and I can forget to, wash, cook, take care of my life or take accountability for that human experience that my soul chose, which is completely wrong. And it's something I'm always going to criticize, because I teach what I teach so that you can enhance and understand and deepen and improve your experience, not so you can, say to yourself, oh, I was a Greek goddess many thousand years ago, so in this life I just can sit and, and I don't have to do anything because, I'm a Greek goddess, so, and I'm nothing else. And that's, that's not true, because you might have been a Greek goddess, before Christ, but right now you are, Haley, Kimberly, Sally, Hillary, whatever, and this is what your soul picked for a reason, because that Hillary has a life mission to fulfill. Anyway, Chelly is saying that her lunar mention is Hasta. And see, this is what I'm calling. Hasta is the one that I have the Jupiter in, which is responsible for the hands. And Hasta is located in Libra nowadays with our system. So if your moon is in Hasta, the moon has to be in Libra. That's what I'm guessing. The whole mention of the mountains thing, this is not Vedic astrology. It's something else that I don't know what that is, but Hasta sounds correct. That's the name of the one. It means the hand in Hindu. So this is the one that gives you literally the power to grasp your desire or your goal within your hand, when, for me, it's in the 12th house. So it's the collective healing ability, basically, or spiritual subjects. But like I said, if someone is more mercurial, maybe they have Mercury in Hasta. Oh yeah, it's because using the sidereal calendar. In sidereal calendar, they use Virgo, so that's true. But I use the different, it's called Ayanam, so different calculations, but it's not an astrology stream, so I'm not going to talk about it too much right now, because I want to go back to the
numerology,
to the whole subject, and then we can talk about Chili's chart when we also look at her numerology chart. Yeah, and I honestly wonder if I covered enough of the basics, but I think that I did. We don't want that to become too long. It's already been quite a while, and I have to also start talking about the basic meaning of the numbers. And what's also important behind this, the basic numbers here that we count behind, the life path, the soul urge number, they are from 1 to 9, because when you start going from after 9, you get a 10, and 10 is 1 plus 0, which is 1. So that's why you stick the basic numbers. We also look at master number vibrations, 11, 22, 33. Some people also include 34, but personally, I don't. But I know some people do. And what's also I find it important is that even though there are technically only 9 numbers, so there's not much diversity in what kind of number you can be, you can have a different combination of numbers that leads up to the number. So when you calculate the life path number, what you do is you add it like number by number. So let's say I was born on November 15th. I'm going to do this in the comments, and I'm going to show you how you calculate the life path number for complete rookies. And this is basically what you're getting for November 15, 1992, which is my birth date. And you basically add those singular digits. And so what you end up with when you add my digits is a 29. And then you end up 2 plus 9, and that makes an 11. So basically, what you should also look at in your chart is this last number that you get before you get the final number, because there are basically several subtypes in a main type. So let's say you're in 11. There are several single digits that are going to reduce to that. You can be at 2911 or 3811 or 4711, or technically 56 also would just reduce to an 11. I think there's some sort of like mathematical impossibility that the number can't be, too high, although maybe in the future when you're born a year, I don't know, 2900, 1999, maybe there's going to be a higher number. But basically, there's only a number of combinations that are going
Oh, that's
to give
right. Yeah. And too, just to super break it down for people that aren't at all familiar with the numbers here would be the day, month, and year. So you're born on the 15th. Yeah. So 15th, 1 plus 5, the first month, or the 11th month. There we go. Must be, which is 1 plus 1, and then 1992. So you add all of the digits, and like in the Capillarian system, and maybe in this system, they look at the month, day, and year individually, and they emphasize the middle number. So in mine, which is, my month is a 6, my day is a 28, which is a 1, 2 and 8 is 10, which is 1, and the year is 3. So I'm a 613. And when you add those together, you also get a 1. So, and they emphasize the middle number, the date number. And so I'm very 1, and it's very true. I've always been prepared. I have all the things I need with me. And anyway, I'll hand it back to you.
Yeah, but what you said is very, it's very true that when you have repeating numbers in your charts a lot, or even in those single, those like smaller numbers, that also speaks for your personality. That's also important. Like I have so many 11s, in both my core chart and like those smaller things, and I was born on the 11th one too. So it's kind of like you with the 1. I have like 11s all over the place, and I forgot which one, but also I think one of my other numbers also is in 11, like in the core numerology chart. Was personality, because I forget the names of them. I just know that it's in one of my big 4. So like again, the repetition is, it's something that's very real. Shaylee says numerology gets so deep. Yeah, it does. It really does. That's why we're having a whole class on it, because it's it's the mathematical language of God. Is how I like to call it. And I think when there's such a strong congruency in repeating numbers, or maybe you have like 2 or 3 main numbers that repeat themselves, that's gonna just speak off on the main traits of your personality. And that's why I'm saying every life path person is different, because everyone can have something else repeating itself. There are many ones. Kezri is not the only one, but no one is exactly like her. Yeah, you're saying something, Kezri?
Yeah. And now I almost forgot what I was going to say. I think I did forget what I was going to say. Never mind.
Do you want me to give you a minute so that you can,
talk about the numbers. Yeah, no, it's not going to come back right this minute.
Okay, when it does, feel free to so we can go back to. So it happens all the time. Like also the older I get, the more it happens to me. Like I forget all the time. It's annoying. Sometimes I'm like on my phone and I have something, and I have 2 phones, and I tell myself, okay, I'm browsing one phone and I had an idea for something to do on the other phone, and then I end up forgetting what I wanted on the first one. And I'm like, I'm just. Yeah, you're saying something?
Yeah, well, and some of that for me is ADHD, but some of it is not getting enough sleep. And it's funny because I talk about it a lot, and I have personal friends that are concerned for me, and I'm really making an effort. I'm juggling all the things at once. And that's part of what's going on for me, is I didn't get enough sleep, because I normally can remember. We were talking about birth dates, the different things. Yeah, it's gone. Yeah. But yeah, you were going to go through, it might be good to have a visual with, some keywords. Is there a thing we could pull up for that? Or do you want to just because it seems like we should go through, the 1 through 9 and talk about what the vibration or the keys are.
Yeah, I guess we can, we can think about it, because the thing is that I have my own writing, and it's very long. So I didn't even think of putting up a visual because of the whole, but I found a very nice link, Kezri, here, where you can,
excellent,
where you can maybe put that up. I hope that it's going to work. Where's the? This is kind of it's kind of the it's kind of a generalization, but I think there's enough to have something to go on. You are doing a class. Well, I'm doing a class right now, Chili, because you're asking me. My life path, solar and expression number are all 5. So there you go, Chili. If everything you have is a 5, then you're very mercurial, because we're gonna come back to that when we
analyze it. 5's a tough one because at least in the Kepler belief or description, it's change, and so that's good. Like we need all the numbers. You know, you need the 1 is this. They use a plant analogy, so the 1 is the seed, the 2 is like just breaking out, and it's very much about the other. The 3 is kind of the entertainer. The 4 is very structured. The 5 is change, which we need. And yet, if you land on that and you have a lot of change, like it can be good to try to remedy that with some more grounded number energies. But I'll pull this up and let you talk.
Yeah, like I don't want to talk about the 5 straight away now because I'm gonna do it, in the order of the numbers. So I'm gonna, skip the comment that's trying to escape from my lips right now and say, "Wait, Shelly, I'm gonna get to the number 5 in case we can pull up the
yes
the list that I found." I also wanted to say that we tend to attract people in our lives by certain vibrations that we have. What I mean is that, for example, me as an 11, when an 11 is a mix of 1 and 2 essentially, because an 11 is 1, so that makes it 2. So master number is always a mix of those two vibrations. But as an 11, I tend to attract a lot of 1s too in my personal life, because 1s basically are kind of like the sibling of the 11, because the 11 contains 2 1s. So Kesri is so strong in 1, that makes sense, right? That we collaborate. My husband is a 1 too, and that's it's very typical to have that the numerology compatibility kind of sprung at you. Yeah,
is this not this not the right one?
I think there's like an X. There's an X in the top right. It's an add. Maybe you can click it out. I don't know. And you scroll down, and there's gonna be a table. Down. There's a whole table. Yeah, this is just a nice drawing, but there you go. You have like a whole table. Yeah, nice. Chili said that he was cute, but it was just an ad actually. Chili says she was born in number 7. Yeah, we'll get to the. Maybe you can put a little lower so that there's this love to know thing that you can scroll down. We can see down to the 9. Oh yeah. Okay. Not long enough. Okay. Whatever. Forget it.
Or wait. No, there we go. No, I'm almost doing it. Let's see if I make I make it wider. But I still can't. Let's see. Yeah, we can't see all of them.
We can kind of just scroll as we go along. So go back to the 0 so I can start from the beginning and talk about it. Anyway, we don't include the 0 in numerology when it comes to a person, because a 0 is a number of God, is a number of infinity. That's why they're saying here that there's an idea of wholeness, inclusiveness, and infinite potential, because it's the universe in the unformed, infinite state. So in a way, I think that maybe when you were born on a day like the 10th, the 20th, the 30th, or like the month, you may feel that that expansiveness, in you, that the desire for experiencing a broad spectrum of things. But at the end of the day, this number is limited limited. It's unlimited. So human beings are too limited for that number. Basically, it's the 0 is where everything comes from. Yeah, go ahead.
And so it relates to the Fool in Tarot. And so exactly. Is it Tarot or Tarot? How do we pronounce that? Somebody asked me the other day, or was that you?
I'm from Poland, so I say tarot kind of, but in Polish you say tarot. Actually, I don't know. Doesn't matter. Everyone knows what it is. I guess I kind of mimic other Americans, so I don't know.
Yeah.
If you say tarot, it's gonna be explainable. If you say tarot, it's also gonna be pretty. Everyone's gonna know what you mean. I think that there is no confusion in that department, and I don't think there's one right way to say it, because I guess if you say tarot, it's like more French based, because it sounds like you say with the French accent. And if you say tarot, it's kind of like more Germanic. So I think both are actually correct, depending on what you want.
Yeah.
And given the ancient origin of the art itself. But yeah, basically, it's something that Kesri already remembers from my class about tarot, that I mentioned numbers there, but we're gonna talk about it more when we get to the birth card part, because we're gonna do it like the flip side right now, the numerology part of it. Right, last time we did more the tarot side, and right now we're gonna do the numerology side. Yeah, Shelly says tomato. It's all the same, exactly. That's how this works. So yes, basically the 0 is not something that we have as a life path, because again, it encompasses this infinity, the raw potential of the universe to create and divide itself into living beings, choosing a specific form, and the 0 is a non-specified form. Here they're saying the negative trait of this is limitation, idealistic expectations, and endlessness. So I guess maybe it's like a negative human approach towards the universe, that human beings don't realize that the universe is unlimited, This is what the author here is trying to say, that well, I have my own writing on the subject, but they're basically trying to say that they, on one hand, they feel that like they're limited, but they also kind of believe that the universe is going to live their life for them, which is, not realistic, because you have picked this incarnation to use that incarnation for its best, right? So on one hand, you have to believe that you have unlimited possibilities, but then you have to also understand that even if it's unlimited, you still have to take certain steps, or at least allow the current to take you somewhere. And if you are in a state of, laying down your bed and resisting, then you're not really gonna have, the expensive life that you can have. And I guess that there's also this kind of anxiety that happens, that as humans, we feel comfortable knowing that something has a beginning and an end, because our brains struggle to vast the cosmic infinity and the fact that there may be no life or death. We are scared when we think of that, right? So I guess that they call it negative quality from a human perspective, but truly, if a zero doesn't really have any judgment within it, you can judge a zero when it comes to, you can't say that, you can't quantify God or the universe. It's just there. It just exists. And, maybe from a human perspective, something may be tougher to grasp, but still it is what it is, and we are a part of it, we're an expression of it. So if we hate on that infinity, we're hating on ourselves, really. Anyway, let's move on to something more specific for human beings, which is a 1. And this is, you said, is your number. You said it's your life, but can't be right. Number 1 is ruled by the sun, and it has very strong leadership qualities, and most importantly, not just a leader, but the one is a pioneer, which means they're doing something new. They are kickstarting something that they are not afraid to do, to just kind of split themselves from the rest of the world, and as a result, they become the one that people follow. So it's the kind of leadership that comes from uniqueness, and that comes from being individualistic and not asking for anyone's opinion if they want to do something that's that they think is valuable. So it's about taking genuine inspiration and going with the inspiration. Yeah, that's why I didn't even see the label, but the word they use is pioneering. Because, just like with the sun rises every day, does its thing, and it doesn't care what anyone's thinking, right? And
yeah, and it's interesting, which is slightly off the topic, but as a Leo rising, which is in astrology, which is ruled by the sun, I had that realization. And 2, I have a Cancer sun and have other planets in Cancer, so very sun moon, and the sun and the moon are the only 2 planets that, from our point of view, don't ever go retrograde. And so I'm more comfortable when things are moving along, and I'm more befuddled by the retrograde energy of things. But I apologize. That was an astrology aside. Done with that. Let's focus on 1 and move on to 2, right?
Yeah, that's okay. That's okay. Take your time. And as I'm talking about the numbers one by one, I'm going to put links to, I have like longer articles where they explain each number, and we can, talk about all of them in this live stream, because it will take too much, but I'm just going to link it for those who want to maybe learn and, and read. So right now I pasted the link for the 1. So yeah, as, I didn't even look at this table, but for those who are new, basically it shows you the negative and positive traits of the sun. So here they're saying egocentric, overbearing, repressive, indolent, weak. Yeah, I think that actually from experience, the ones, they struggle less with the whole egocentric part, and they struggle more with the whole repressed part. Why? Because when you're a pioneer and when you're the first person who is doing something, initially you don't get a lot of support because you're different. And you have to break away from where you come from, and you kind of have to kickstart things by yourself before someone joins you and is on board with you, And so you might feel like people criticize you for your real self, and you may just struggle when you're young to have the courage to be able to come out with that. And that is, a challenge that you're going to see is with every life path number, that the way that they are struggling is that they basically are born not really doing what they're supposed to be doing. And it's not just the one, it's just how it works for every human being on this planet, right? So for the one who is supposed to be such a pioneer that believes in themselves and that is not afraid to be different and is supposed to then have the crowd follow them, they may kind of be more following others when you're the younger, more insecure and not believing in their potential and thinking that they're nothing special, or what they have to offer doesn't really have much worth. They may be in the mentality when they're, when they're younger. It just may be the kind of that harder side. Okay, so basically, whenever you're gonna have a number, the negative trait of it is gonna be, I guess, what the equivalent of what we call the not solving human design. So the opposite of what you're supposed to be, because if you're supposed to be a leader, you can't cower or hide. So I guess the negative qualities would be more like the fear of being and becoming who we are because of the pushback that we may receive. And some people, they might have a harder time doing that than other people. Now, that doesn't mean that they're doomed not to do it. But for example, let's say that you have a lot of ones in your chart, but you have something like Saturn in the first house. That's when astrology comes in to help you, to show you how that works. So, for example, you will maybe have had an environment that was not friendly to you expressing your natural one qualities, right? And so as a result, you end up feeling bad about them, not because you're doing something wrong, but because you just had so much, pushback coming from your upbringing, being a one. So that doesn't mean that you'll never do it. It just means that probably you will, as you go into your 30s, you will start being yourself more, and you will kind of discover these qualities of yourself more later in life. And it's something that I can touch on now before I'm going to master numbers, is that that's why also 11 as master number can struggle over time, because an 11 is a double one. And what does that mean? That means that they are double original. They can be very quirky, weird, different, and they can just be a whole different animal altogether. And or more so, they can be placed in an environment that's doubly conservative, mixed with their originality. And as someone who is an 11 from experience, as a double one, I can tell you that's exactly how it went for me. Is that if I was raised here in the USA with my talents and interests, I think it would be considered slightly less unique, because there are just so many psychic shops here and all these psychic fairs. There's like a whole culture in this country around that, and it's maybe still niche, but it exists. The other day, I went with my husband to the oldest psychic shop in Vegas, and it was like a size of a mini grocery store. I was so surprised. And where I was raised in Poland, there are shops that are reserved to spirituality, but they're like quarter of a size. And because it's still a religious country, people kind of look at these people kind of like they're a little bit crazy. So being raised in such a culture is like a definition of the alien experience, that you kind of have a mix of double pressure on your individuality and the double the need to burst out with it. And with the one is going to be a similar pattern, maybe just less intense. And to give you an example, how that works, for example, Kanye West is an 11, and you know how he's like so weird, and so many people hate him because he has all these comments and he is controversial. And at some point he said in an interview that he's God or something. But honestly, I think he meant that he's an aspect of God, because mass numbers, they have that awareness that we are all part of God. And that can also be an issue with the 11s, is that when they feel a lot of pressure from people who don't like them, they end up going into their ego in such a way that they say those things like he does, they try to compensate out of the feeling of ostracism that they receive from others. Well, really, the path there is spirituality and maybe even seclusion and reflection. Some people, when they have success and they're in the public light, like he is, because of his original creativity in music, right? This is how he got famous. They can get into this kind of less giving and less healing, but more egoic vibration. But that comes out of the fact that they feel so deeply. They feel like people criticize them, and so it kind of is a pushback. And that brings us back to the 2, and the 2 is ruled by the moon. So the 2 is kind of like the opposite of the 1, where it's supposed to work on cooperation and being in a safe environment, and being nurtured and being surrounded by loving people. And it has a very positive communal aspect to it, and a caretaking role where it's really able to provide in that unique way. However, again, I don't even look at this table. I'm just going to speak from experience here. The problem with the 2 is that they don't measure their needs for connection well early on in their lives, and they end up clinging onto one partner instead of understanding that their energy is so vast and so sensitive that they should really be in some sort of a group endeavor or in a group living situations for that to be fulfilled. Or even if it's online, participate in a community, or maybe do live streams or whatever, or just have a blog. And then the mistake that I've seen most 2s do early in life is cling to this one person, thinking that that partner is gonna save their life. and or maybe this one parent or whoever the friend they choose, they kind of end up making that person their whole life, and that's a problem. Like, that doesn't mean that they can't be emotional with them, because that's okay, but they have to kind of have this flexibility of moving around between different people they care about, or again, maybe even having a group to kind of contain them. And then as a result of not having that containing vessel for their group desires, they end up in the negative side here, where they kind of either are too shy to express themselves in front of their partner because they want to people please so much, or they kind of become frustrated and they start arguing just because they don't feel like they're seen enough. There's a lot of need for attention and care with this observation. There's a high caring about what people think about them, and they can basically act out if they don't feel validated. And again, that's why a group also helps, because there's like a lot of people in the group, so you can kind of feel like you have a lot of attention on yourself as a two, and that can soothe you in a way. It's kind of like a child that needs to see both parents together, and then grandma and grandpa, so that they can feel that peace. And again, another important outlet for a two is spirituality, because the moon is a very psychic celestial body. It's very, very, very sensitive. So, even if you're doing it by yourself, then you should have that space when you take care of your atmosphere, your well-being, and you can really nurture yourself and feel the connection to the universe. Or maybe things like walking alone in the woods or whatever, doing this kind of stuff, really connecting to that higher energy, not just to people, but also through your intuition, and that kind of eliminates the emotional ups and downs and the emotional chaos and unfairness that the number can produce when it's unhappy. So the number 3 is ruled by Jupiter, and as a result, these people, they're kind of really happy-go-lucky in their expression, and they have that natural positivity that it feels like even if bad stuff happens to them, they don't get broken down by it, and they also have this kind of bubbly aura around them. They really know how to spread positivity, and it's something, it's very fun, because my expression number is 3, and especially when I would participate in groups, I have heard so many times that people were like, oh wow, you your energy gives me such an uplift and all that stuff. And it's something that I heard, having that in my core chart for so many years, so many times. And here really there is the tendency to lift people up and really have that big perspective, and be abundant, and be able to really create a lot, not just for yourself but for others. And here they're talking about superficiality in this table, but I kind of find that the shadow of the 3 is actually timidness in expressing their gifts, because the 3 is, again, it also has this originality and the desire for expression and creation. And that doesn't have to be always, painting. That, for example, in my case, I would say is more writing about spiritual subjects, but there can be a certain hesitation, not even in starting your endeavors like with the 1, but in even expressing that positivity that you have. So you may kind of become more withdrawn and feel like no one wants you to do it. And so as a result, let's say that you have an inspiration to do a drawing as a 3, even if no one sees it, you should do it, because you should keep the flow going. You should have that flow of positive creativity always sustained and encouraged in yourself, by yourself. And the 3s that I've seen are more in a negative spectrum. They are completely constipated in a way creatively. They're energetically blocked, and they just don't do it. And possibly the behaviors in the table are showing are kind of like an outlet that they turn to gossip or deceit or maybe games, because their mind is not occupied enough with the craft that they love. Possibly, this is something that I think sees a side effect, but I like to go to the root and the cause, and here the cause is basically not channeling their abilities enough. And it's something that, as someone who has a 3 in their core chart, my go-to method of escapism in the past was gaming. And I can tell you that when I didn't know how to do with my spirituality, because I didn't know that I had all these talents when I was much younger, it was hell. You end up feeling very restless with this number. Restlessness is the right word. You end up feeling like there's an alien inside of you that wants to burst out, and you don't know what to do with it. So, and that was because I didn't know about my abilities. I was completely unconscious of them and busy with survival. So until you allow yourself to have that flow with a 3 in your core chart, especially as life path number, you will basically suffer in that way. You will feel. The other thing that I've seen here that's not in the table is I've seen a lot of partying with the threes because they just have so much expensive energy that they just, the drinking and the woohoo thing, it really, takes the pressure off them. But it's kind of like having, excuse the expression, too much casual sex, basically, instead of having a deep connection with someone, more deep and meaningful. So it's kind of like the shallowness of where the energy bursts out is the problem when it should be concentrated and it should flow from the heart. Now, the 4 is ruled by a mix of Saturn and the North Node, or otherwise called Rahu in Vedic astrology. The Indians actually claim that number exclusively for the North Node. And the 4 is responsible for the structuring and organization of material reality. And it's a tough number, but it's very necessary because without it, we wouldn't have any systems that would work in our society. It's extremely practical. It's extremely perfectionistic, but in a way, it's just such a fundamental force in our lives for us to be able to have an enjoyable existence on this material plane. Because if we didn't have a 4, streets wouldn't have numbers, buildings wouldn't have numbers, we wouldn't be able to find anything, we wouldn't be able to systematize anything. The 4s are very systematic. This is the key with this number. And in a way, I think that this is here saying the dogmatic, crude, impatient, incompetent, overly dominant. The problem with this number is that I would say, more than all of this, is being compulsive. The 4s are very compulsive, and when they don't have the right outlet to be able to release their compulsiveness, then they can become, I guess, dogmatic, dominant, or impatient. And the incompetence is more something that they feel about themselves because people are very hard on themselves. They just always feel like they're not enough. Why? That can feel like this when they don't have the right outlet for their skills. So if there's anyone that could actually benefit from having some sort of organizational job, it's a 4. And if you're a 4, you should have like a perfect order in your house because everything's gonna piss you off. You should have like a clean desk because you're the kind of person who's gonna be distracted by every single detail in your life. That's just how your brain works. And that can be put to good use if you have enough of an outlet, if you kind of release that enough during the day in your life calling or what you do, then you're gonna be calm. Maybe you work as a systems processor or something, right? Or someone who you can even be someone who cleans or organizes for a living, that's also needed. And that's going to just help your juices with the 4 flowing, the system, whether that's a system of cleaning up your kitchen or the system at work. Knowing that everything has its place is something that's necessary for a 4 to feel at peace. And as a result, people kind of come to them with questions about that system because they just become such a reliable source. Fun fact: the one thing that I do not recommend if you can possibly avoid for a 4 is buildings, is apartments, is houses, because the 4 rules that anxiety of constant organizing. And in the world in general, in the human world, that number has an outlet because there's always something to fix in this world. It's just the way it is. The world life is imperfect, and there's an infinite number of ways to improve this world, right? We really have that blessing as human beings. But the home space is somewhere where you should be resting, where you should be sleeping, and where you should be having some time off. Maybe after a whole day outside, you should be able to lay down, have a calm meal, and then go to sleep and wake up and recharge. And I actually was raised in a number 4 apartment where both the apartment and the building were both 4s. And first of all, because of the whole fixing vibration, things can tend to break in those places all the time. Like the 4 and the 7 are the 2 numbers that have the most technical problems statistically in real estate. Because why? The number rules fixing, so you have to have something to fix all the time. And if you don't, then it's gonna happen. Basically, you're gonna just have this vibe that there's something not always quite fully well with the place. And maybe in a different number you would let it slide, but with the 4, they could drive you nuts, literally. Like no matter what you do, it doesn't matter if you have money or you don't have money. You can just find it right. And the other problem is that a home exists, again, for this restful space. And the 4 likes to contribute to society. It likes to work for the benefit of mankind because systems are for mankind. And a home space is not for mankind, it's for you. So it could work more like, more like in a restaurant vibe or something. But when it's your personal home space, it can really pump your anxieties up. And the reason for that is the North Node, which can be a point of our obsession. So whichever house the North Node is in, and you live inside the 4 is just going to get pumped up, and it's going to be it's going to make you feel out of balance. Whenever I lived inside the 4, the problem I always had was that I was turning into this clean freak, and I wanted to organize everything all the time. And at some point, there's a limit when it comes to space or efficiency that you can do, and that's incredibly frustrating. So again, do not recommend for. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, and it can be sort of stressful. I have a friend who has very much a 4 name, and he isn't an accountant, but he was managing a business, like a storage, storage business where they rent out little individual spaces, and he was very, very good at and meticulous at keeping track of all those details. And yet, it was hard for me to, like, when you land on 4 as an energy, it can be a lot. And it reminds me that and we'll talk about maybe later the difference between the birth date information and then the name information, because they both come into play. And when they're sort of in conflict, I guess it's difficult. And I'm very much a 1, and my birth name was full of 2s and 4s. And that's just different energy, and it wasn't maybe helpful. And I always was very sort of controlled and detail oriented growing up. And I guess I kind of am now, but I've relaxed a lot more to just, we do, like you said, we do need order and cleanliness. But if you're so hyper focused on that you can't relax and just, accept the imperfection of whatever, then that's a stressful place to be.
Yeah, one of the lunar mentions that you have in your big 3 categories is ruled by the North Node, and that's gonna kind of make you more, like this. But it's also mixed with the Jupiter and Saturn, so you should be pretty balanced blend. I really believe that we are all born the way we are for a reason. So even if you are a blend that may feel a bit, tough to deal with, that means that you are uniquely equipped to bring in that energy to the world. You are you for a reason. And even if that is hard, all you have to do is learn how to manage that. All you have to do is learn how to channel it and what is the use for who you are exactly. And
it's empowering. It's a little bit of a tangent, but my understanding is that we do, on some other realm, choose our incarnation. We choose. People say you can't pick your parents. Well, you kind of did. You pick your chart, your time, your parent. You pick the situation, some higher you, in order to learn or teach whatever you're going to do in this world. And like you said, I think I've picked a hard one. I think a lot of us maybe have, but whatever you've picked, there is a purpose. And then at some point, the physical body will die and it'll be over. And then, then you're on to other things or something. But yeah.
It's about a point of attraction. It's just like with manifestation on Earth. In high dimensions, it also happens. It just maybe the timing of it is different, and the scale and the consciousness is higher. But you attract the kind of life that you desire. Let's say that you have a higher aspect of yourself, right? And that higher aspect really wants to feel something. It wants to experience something. So it's going to magnetize towards a family and a human life that is the most likely to give it that experience. So let's say that, and that can be more kinky than we imagine it. So let's say that you want to incarnate as a woman, and you want to have this kind of experience where it was well, I want to really experience how it feels to be truly, truly loved and truly worshipped by a man as a goddess after having suffered from really bad things before. So you're gonna incarnate as someone who has all the wrong dudes first, right? And then maybe when the time comes, you meet Mr. Right later on in life, and you breathe a sigh of relief because your soul wanted to know that experience. You wanted to understand the depth of how good it can feel. And so what it ups into first is contrast. First, you get the opposite of that just so you can appreciate how good it is when you have the real deal. And why is that necessary? Because as human beings, we are very fickle, and we have a very high tendency to take things for granted. And so if you have something from birth, then you kind of, oh yeah, it's normal that I have it. And it's not going to be what your soul craves the most, right? Because it's going to be taken for granted. So it's totally basically like you said in that way. And when the numbers are contradicting, that just means that you're unique, and your expression is meant to provide those things in matching ways, basically. Anyway, moving on to the 5, I believe Chaley said that she had a lot of 5s in her chart. The 5 is ruled by Mercury. So this is the kind of the 4. What they have in common is that the 5 needs to stay busy. But the 5 is kind of less bound by systems. The 5 is about novelty and exploration, while the 4 is more about, those grounded foundations. The 5 is more about providing itself a new stimuli, about communication and exchange. I think this is the negative here that I agree with the most, when they put the hyperactive on the negative side. That's like very much, a strong challenging trait of the 5. But that just means that, again, the 5 did not get enough outlets. People who embody the 5 positively are very organized, and they always have something to do. They, even if they, after they're working, they have several hobbies. Hobbies are very important for a 5. They know how to channel their energy in ways that are productive for themselves and the world. And they're kind of like mavericks, really. It's really beautiful. I would say that the negative expression of the 5 minus the hyperactivity is, again, the timidness in trying something new, and as a result, they can be kind of a paralysis, or then it goes into hyperactivity. So what really is important for a 5 is to find balance, as in have a harmonious life in between all the activities that you have. So become whole in the fact that you like both to belong to a chess club and then a karate club after, to kind of be able to reconcile opposites within yourself and understand that this universe is dual and it's complex, and it's infinite in its complexity and its dualism. So you having that nature is just you being this kind of form of aspect of God, and that it's okay, and that you don't have to be one person. So this acceptance and stability and wisdom of the deep of duality that you have as a 5 is something that's going to really set you free. I like the word they used here. They call the 5 prolific, and that's true, because if someone masters a lot of skills, they are prolific, So the 5 can really be someone that people end up, again, coming to for advice because of the amount of skills that they can have. So it's hard to contain that energy. Like I said, it can be kind of a mess in your own head. You can kind of feel like a prisoner of your own head with a 5. But if you really channel that, and if you accept yourself, self-acceptance here is very important, then you can really excel at a lot of things. Now, moving on to the 6. The 6 is ruled by Venus. And so here with the 6, there's kind of an interesting conundrum of both heaven and hell, where you kind of end up being able to embody the best and the worst in both yourself and humanity, because Venus, in astrology, is kind of has this cookie cutter reputation where people think, oh, Venus is all things sugary and nice. It's love and harmony, and we're all, holding hands and singing kumbaya, but that's not really how it works. Venus is a planet of deep transformation, and it's a planet of primal natural law of Mother Earth. And Mother Earth can be beautiful, but she can be cruel. That's why Venus also rules death as well as love. It rules all that is achieved through sexuality, as in birth of children, physical birth of children also. And it has really this duality of the both beauty, ferocity, and the scary aspect of nature and human life. And here with the 6, we are engulfed by both of these aspects. So what that can lead to? That can lead to things like hedonism, or picking the wrong partners, or promiscuity, and basically not being able to choose what is really worthy, and being tempted by things that seem promising but are not really good for you. Venus is about values. So actually, mature 6 is someone who has a life full of things that they really value, and as a result, they become of value to others. So it's all about avoiding temptation of things that may seem exciting, but they're not. We'll get to this in a while when we move on to the birth card, but there is a reason that one of the cards is associated with the 6 is the devil in tarot. It's because, it's not that the devil is bad himself. He's a testing point to see what is not good for you that has control over you. The 6 is very much about being able to control things that don't really suit them long term. It's about planning, as in planning on a spiritual level. I would say maybe spiritual planning in such a way that you plan what's going to yield you long-term dividends as a soul also. And you are able, again, to avoid the temptation, and you learn the things that you try to control in a way end up controlling you. And on the positive side, when they do really have these things that they care for, they are very devoted towards their goals. They're dedicated towards the people, friends, and partners that they do choose. There's this wise selectiveness that you have when you're a mature 6, and you can also be someone, again, who's creative. The 3 and the 6 are two of the most creative numbers with Venus and Jupiter. So you end up being able to really create things of value that delight others. So it can be a good position for an artist. as well. And as someone who has a pretty strong 6 too, because my birth date is 15, so that adds up to a 6. And actually, my husband is a 24/6 too, so it's also very again, the Venusian energy is pretty strong. The people that you surround yourself with this number are everything. And while the one pretty much has a karma of a leader and a loner.
I'm still here.
Yeah, I'm guessing. While the one has that karma, the 6 always has an interpersonal karma, as in there's always going to be someone in their life that's important to their evolution, and they're important to their evolution. There's the mutual aspect to the 6. And you can't really, get rid of that and say, oh, I wish I was a 1 because you're a 6. So that karma is always going to be there. And you just have to be able to choose what you are with, and at all times there's scrutiny. Sometimes you get the experience of getting exactly what you don't want, so you can learn what you want through contrast. There's a lot of contrast here. Now, the 7 is ruled by the South Node, otherwise called Ketu in Vedic astrology. And the 7 is also something that I tended to attract a lot as an 11 because it's a very mystical vibration. It's very spiritual, so master numbers and the 7 can kind of flock together because of that mutual spiritual interest. The 7 is kind of the most, I would say, out of this world. It's very mystical in a way that their head is not even interested in this dimension fully. They're very abstract, interested in higher concepts more than the nitty-gritty of their physical life. And how can that manifest on the more difficult spectrum? They can have a lot of practical problems with their life. That means that they cannot even do the bare minimum, and as a result, they can drown in debts, or they can, buy things they don't need because they look pretty. They can get completely kind of swallowed by the more cruel aspect of reality because they themselves are so out there and so, their head is up in the clouds that they don't bother even with the bare minimum of survival on planet Earth, as in just enough so that they can, eat and not get themselves in trouble. 7s can, again, the being prone to death is a very big theme with this number, the idealistic thinking, and that leads them to taking certain actions. That's what matters, because, if you just sit and you have an idea that's, idealistic, but you don't really do anything with it, then it's not the end of the world. But the 7s, they go with its flow. They end up drowning in the wrong flow, as in, if let's say that you're somebody who has gambling debts. I knew a 7 once in my more distant family that they were left by 7, and they suddenly, it turned out that they had gambling debts, and everyone was really shocked because it was not a thing in my family. And, some family members, they almost passed out because they were so shocked. It was not typical, but that 7 basically was somebody that counted on making a lot of money through gambling because they didn't have much, and they didn't tell anyone anything, but they just went ahead and they accumulated that from the gambling. So, the idea of thinking, oh, maybe I would like to win the lottery, and maybe paying $1 on one small coupon is not the end of the world. By spending lots and lots of money being dedicated to that flow of negative vortex of addictions is something that a 7 is capable of. This drowning in that, manifesting the self-destructive ideal. That's the most difficult thing there. But on the plus side, if they channel it well, they can become really good creators of the abstract. Again, they can be great artists. They can excel in things that are they're abstract on the conceptual level. They can be, for example, good architects, because an architect is just a designer. They're not somebody who actually builds the wall. They design the space, the concept, right? So they are not the person who lays the bricks. They are the person who imagines the space, and they're the person who has to be able to visualize how that can work so that there are good solutions. This is what the 7 is good at, the ability to abstractly visualize concepts that then can become reality. So I would say that the 7 really flourishes when they can see that the concepts that they think of, even if they are on the realm of the abstract for them, they ultimately do have some sort of practical application, even if it's like with tarot or astrology that you end up using that to improve somebody's life, right? So you don't just do astrology to say, oh, it's so cute because the planets are glittering in the sky and I want to look at it and just dream my life away. No, that the application of it is to teach somebody, and to be able to improve somebody's life or change their attitude towards real things that happen to them. That's the point of a 7, to use the abstract to improve the physical. And yeah, go ahead. Yeah,
I was just going to say, I was finishing your concept there. Yeah, the abstract to then that's their role that's then brought into the physical by someone they work with who's a different number.
Yeah. The issue with the 7 also is that they're excellent manifestors, so they kind of end up thinking that they will end up manifesting certain things without taking what I like to call spiritual accountability. So because they're such good manifestors, they kind of skip certain steps sometimes, thinking that they can do it, and then they find out they can't, and it's a big problem. And then things end up collapsing for them, or they end up in really dire situations, and they're like, how did that happen? When in fact they don't realize that they are a powerhouse of these gifts. Like, let's say that you have the talent to be an architect, right? Well, you have to go to school, right? You have to be able to actually do something with the talent, of being an architect. You can just say, oh, well, I'm going to play The Sims for the rest of my life because I'm a good architect. That's not going to do you anything, like, even if you want to, stream you playing Sims on social media, you have to set that up, even if you want to make it as a gamer, you have to start doing something, right? And the 7 can struggle with that. But besides the master numbers, I find them to be actually the best intuitives also. So again, use regularity mixed with your talents, and you will be fine as a 7. Just don't end up, dissociating through life. They can really drown in those addictive behaviors. The 8 is, in my opinion, the more productive Saturnian number, because while the 4 is more about the compulsive system thing, the 8 is more about building blocks, not organizing what's already there, not hyper-focusing on the detail of it or spacing it out, but more about building things from the ground up gradually. It's that aspect of Saturn. And as a result, these people are very mature because they know how to handle high degrees of responsibility and long-term long-term vision and their ability to execute it, that they don't even take the first step because they're afraid of the of the process and how much it's going to take to get them there. Here there's
and one thing you didn't say yet was what planet rules 8.
Oh, Saturn, the positive expression of Saturn.
Okay.
Yeah. Because in the 4, it's Saturn mixed with the North Node, so there's a very high social aspect. And the 8 is more the objective aspect of Saturn. It's the 8 used positively is very frugal, but it's still able to make the most out of things. I once stayed for a long time in a building that was an 8, and honestly, I really liked it. If you are somebody who has problems with management of anything in your life, your goals, your funds, anything, move to an 8 apartment or building. You're going to suddenly do it well. You're going to suddenly be able to know that you're spending just enough, not too much. You will suddenly find yourself having some sort of a long-term fulfillment, and you'll be also good at protecting your space, because Saturn also likes to have its own time, and the 8 is a perfect manager between, okay, right now I need an hour to rest, but then I'm getting up and doing that thing that I care about. This is when the 4 differs from the 8, when the 4 can really drown in their obsessions and they kind of feel like they can rest and the work is the rest. The 8 knows exactly when to do what. That's why they make excellent bosses. They have this organization, and the I would say the paradox here is that they're the kind of people who can maybe work smart and not hard, and as a result, they can end up going very far, even if they're from humble beginnings, because they just you might think this person, they were not that good at something a year ago, and now they're better than me. How did it happen? Because they're so organized, right? They are so driven, and they have a system, that works for them, and also they don't get tired. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to ask because when you mentioned moving to a building that's an 8, is that looking just at the number, or is that looking at the entire address?
Okay,
what would make a building an 8?
Okay, so first of all, you look at the street number. That depending on the on where you where you are, because like for example, right now where we live in a community, we only have a number of the house, so that matters. But when we lived in Portland, there was a number of the street in a way. So let's say that you live in a building and has 2 apartments. You look at the apartment vibration, and then you look at the building number. And it's got only an interesting thing that in America, most apartments have a number 1 or a number 2 as a apartment, and there's the building itself, which is interesting because it's the energy of the sun or the moon, which is pretty positive. So I would say when you have a more complex number, like the old one we had was 3307, then you would look at that basically. Like, I don't know what your number is, for example, Casri, for the address. How does that work for you?
Yeah. Yeah, other than I will notice that I've almost always lived in apartment 1 or apartment A when I've been in apartments. Right now, my number is 3640. So 36 is 9. So it's a 4, I guess, right?
3 plus 6 plus 4. Oh, yeah, the O doesn't count. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a 34. My God, escape if you can. Like, on one hand, if you had a mess in your life and you wanted to get your SHIT together, then this is a good transitional period. But long term, as someone who lived in an apartment with the same vibration and I was forced to because I had nowhere else to go, do not recommend. My God, owning this place is an endless stream of vibration. If you're just renting, that's different. But if you're the owner and you're responsible for that, that's, But again, if you're at a period of your life when you're trying to really regroup, maybe, or you're trying to see, let's say that you have someone who has a lot of items, right? And you don't know what's good, you don't know what's useful, and you're kind of like drowning in the mess of your own stuff. Some people, they end up in this kind of situation. Then the 4 is a good place for you to sell the stuff that's not for you, throw it out, or just really know what you have that's of value. And
yeah, well, that's interesting because that's very much why I came here. I was forced out of my last apartment where I'd lived for 9 years, and that was 320, which is a 5.
It's a 5, yes.
And I've landed here with the intention of it being sort of as short as I can make it. And like we talked last time, I am in the process of getting a pre-approved for a mortgage so that I can then go shopping and then like buy something and move, which is a pretty big project that kind of has me a little freaked out, but I'm taking it step by step. But I am glad I know about this because then when I go shopping, it's important to know, like, don't buy something that's we'll have to do more on that. It's not a 4, because for myself, I resonate with, I am a 1, but I find 6 is like that stable number, or maybe 8, but yeah, 6 seems to be the most stable number if you can shoot for that. And I generally try to avoid, to some extent, 1, 4, 5, and 7, but 2, that's based on sort of a limited knowledge.
Experience, yeah, but see, experience is the best teacher. I actually once wrote like a whole article on my social media, like why you should avoid real estate with numbers 4 or 7, because they're ruled by the nose, and as a result, they lead to a certain instability. That basically there can be an issue, and especially if you're planning to be a landlord and rent, then you want that stability. 6 is an excellent number because Venus here is about partnerships. And when I grew up, before I moved into the condo that my mother and I used to live in, I used to with my grandparents in the 6, and there was definitely the best building that I've had up until then, until now, when we moved into a 1. And the 1 is excellent for your physical body, for your health, because it's ruled by the sun. It regenerates your health and it makes you focus on your goals. So the 1 is also not bad, but 6 is better for a communal spirit. So if you want to do like a group thing, then the 6 is excellent. Definitely, like,
excellent.
One of the best houses to live in.
And then we'll have to talk more about like whether, because right now I live in 3640, and there's 2 triplexes on this property, and each one has its own number. It's not like a number, but so that would sort of, like, if I do buy something that has multiple numbers, do you add them all together, or you just take into consideration, well, this is a 4, a 5, and a 6 that I'm buying, or how does that work? Yeah, if it has unit 1, 2, 3 or ABC, do we add that?
So let me understand that. So let's say that the building is, let's say 356, and then you have 356 A, B, C, or D, right? So what you do is you add the number, and you also count the number that's separated at the same time. So let's say you have building number 356. I said it out of the blue. 356. That's what? That's it's a 5, right? So you're gonna have the 5 vibration for everyone. The 5 is gonna be there. But then when the person with an A is gonna have extra sound vibration, the person with a D is gonna have an extra 4 vibration. So you will see that maybe if you have tenants, you're going to have different views and relationships with every one of them. And then let's say it's a D, you're always going to be like, oh, the one at the D is causing me trouble because the 4 is the one that's difficult. So if you could keep it to ABC, that would be better, because that's Sun and Jupiter, so you'll be fine. And once you cross a D, it's always, you just step into the problem. And see, that's also, going back to the 4, that's why the 4 is such an important problem solver, because it's the first number in numerology that actually deals with problem solving. By the time we get to the 8, we have more maturity, so it's more of a builder. But the 4 is like the ultimate problem solver that's kind of dealing with this whole mess. So you can find that even if it's not a tenant's fault, you have just the most problems with anything that's 4 numbered, even if it's just a unit number. So yeah, it's kind of both, basically. What you said is a mix of both.
Cool. And I want to acknowledge that we have a comment from a new person. What a lovely day, 90, saying that I'm a life path 7.
Yeah,
So,
don't do drugs, don't fall into addictions. Basically, be really careful, but you're still very gifted, you're still very gifted. Oh, and also another thing maybe I should mention about the 7 is that they really should make up time for solitude, because the South Node like solitude, and in that solitude they can find inspiration to their gifts. When they're around people all the time, they feel overwhelmed, and they end up not being able to tap into that inspiration that is waiting to be awakened inside them. And that's why I actually think that parenthood for 7s is not really the best thing, because a baby is like a little human that needs your constant attention all the time, which is the nature of a baby. And as a 7, you will just feel overwhelmed. You're gonna have to give up like some years of your life to that care. Meanwhile, if you're a 2, if you're left with 2, probably you'll be delighted, right? You have a baby next to you all the time. You feel suited. That's you're in your element. But as a 7, you will feel kind of overwhelmed. My mother was a 7, and she really did her best job. And she's very lucky because I'm also pretty introverted, but we kind of both had our rooms, and we kind of really did spend a lot of time in our own worlds, because I could see her just get tired, especially after she had to go to her job, and she would come back and she would just be tired. And again, luckily for her, I wasn't very clingy, so I would just do my thing, she would do hers. But I'm just thinking, if she had more kids and also a husband to tend to, or she would have to iron his shirts, she would just be even doing worse than she was. So I just saw it firsthand how the 7s work, or that other person that I know that's more in my family that resorted to the desperate attempts at making more money because they couldn't handle the daily grind. It's just not making space for yourself as a 7 is a killer. Anyway, I think that I also kind of covered the 8 pretty seriously. That it's a good builder. Yeah.
And too, I was going to say, we covered everything you want to cover. So we might consider, I can go as long as I want to go, but if you don't want to go for another bunch of time, we could split this into, after we cover the 9, we could break and then come back either next week, or I think Tuesday and Thursday and maybe even Friday also, or no, Tuesday and maybe Friday of next week available if we wanted to do a part 2. But let's talk about 9 first.
Yeah, I'm thinking it might be a good idea, because I just have all these tabs open when I prepared information, and I didn't have the time to finish them. And I also have to do master numbers, which is gonna take time. And then I wanted to talk more about the birth card, which is also gonna take time. So I think I'm gonna do the 9, and then we're gonna think about what you just said. What if your birthday number adds to a 9? Then the 9 is also gonna be an important vibration in your life. What a lovely day, 90. It's what I said before, that technically I have a lot of 11s, but I also have a lot of 6s because of my birthday adding up to 6. So I have that 11-6 mix in my chart. That's why numerology also shows human complexity, because you are a unique mix of all these numbers that pop up regularly in you. So you should also take the 9 seriously, basically. Anyway, the 9. Yeah, go ahead.
Were you about to say what it's ruled by?
Yes,
that's what I was going to ask.
The 9 is ruled by Mars, and the 9 is. In its highest form, it's an activist. It's someone that fights for an important cause. But finding that cause, or being able to find their space of expression, is something that can take time, like with the life path numbers, of course. What we are supposed to do is going to take time. And so as a result, there can be a bit of an internal conflict regarding being able to find that outlet and the place where your skills are useful. So what happens is that often you see the 9s are the ones that go around and argue on social media because they don't know what to argue for. The 9 needs to argue for something that it believes in, and if it didn't find something that it believes in, it's going to argue for anything it can, because it's kind of practicing for the big game, So it's a very useful number, because in a way it has a very high level of maturity, being the last number in the cycle before master numbers come in. So their capacity for leadership also from that perspective is immense. They are very gifted at that. But being able to actually find that outlet and that the target that they have can be kind of like the turning point in their lives. And so as a result, they kind of end up feeling like their own life is a mystery to them. earlier on in life, and they kind of go around, just bursting their energy out, but not really fully sure what they're doing it for, what they stand for. To stand for something is the key with the number 9. And I guess that's where the impulsive and intolerant words came here on the table, because as a result, because they have such a need to fight for something and they don't know what they believe, they end up kind of fighting anyone. So let's say that you have any sort of extremist group on social media that's about like anything at all. They will go and fight with all of them just to oppose something, and they may not even know why, if they're unhappy, with that expression. But if, let's say, there's something that you really believe in because you've been through that experience, right, then you end up being a very powerful activist. So let's say that you have an idea that went through cancer, right? So they can be a cancer activist because they know how it feels. They have the experience. They have like a real, tangible reason to advocate for, cancer patients, right? So that's fantastic. They can, increase the rights for cancer patients. They can make sure they get more donations from the government. That the treatment is cheaper. They can just do so much. They really have that ability to push the envelope. But that's because they have a cause that's based on personal experience. I actually have a friend who's a 9, and she's kind of a bit younger than me, and one of her favorite things is to go on socials and say how everything is kind of stupid, and it should be better, and she has a lot of energy and she can do great things in the future, I can tell. But she's just like this epitome of the 9 that hasn't really quite fully found herself yet, and she just likes to argue. These people, they really want to push their opinion matters to them, and that can go for better or for worse. And I guess the intolerant is the impression people get of them when they just run their mouth without thinking why they're saying what they're saying, or why, and insensitive because they end up hurting people's feelings, and resentful because they end up being offended with anyone who doesn't agree with their opinion, right? And in truth, when as a 9 you have a good cause, you don't have any reason to have enemies. Why? Because when you advocate for something that's good for humanity, there's no reason for someone to hate you for it, really. Like, how many people hate cancer activists, really? Everyone knows they help everyone, right? So there's no reason, right? And that's what happens with a 9 when it's on the right side of its own destiny, that it vouches for it. How do you say it? Champions an unequivocally useful cause that helps the world. Yeah.
And I was going to point out that What a Lovely Day has asked the question of what if your birthday number adds up to 9? And that is what we're covering here, is the vibration of the numbers. And so all of the things that she's talking about here with what the 9 is some aspect of you. There are other numbers because there's an individual, day that you were born, and then the numerology of your name. But yeah, right now we're covering that. Did I answer that completely?
Yeah. I already told them that basically. I told them that it's like with me that I am an 11, but I have 6 is my birth number, so it's the same. You look at all the numbers basically, so that applies for you. And Shelly says awesome info again. Thank you very much. Anyway, I think that's also enough for the for the 9 I told us a lot, and I think that we've been here much longer than I thought. So I think that we're gonna go with your idea of splitting this to 2 parts, because I'm nowhere near done. There's the question of master numbers, which are kind of, again, the mix of 2, and they have a unique blend. And there is the whole birth card thing that I didn't cover. And there's also something I like to talk about a year number, given the fact that we are at the beginning of the new year. It's a good time to cover that topic too, how the years, not just like buildings, also have their numbers basically. So here we covered a lot of basics, including what the numbers mean, and we're going to go in deeper next time. And there's also something else that I didn't cover here that I find to be very fascinating, and that is called karmic vibrations. And that means that when you are born with certain numbers, you are going to have extra karma to work through, and there are very interesting patterns that work through that. And it's not just about a single number, it's about 2 digits, because those numbers, for example, are 13. Everyone knows that 13 is karmic. That's why everyone's scared of a 13, right? Because it has a karmic implication. And for example, the other number there is the 14, the 16, 26, 29, and I can kind of talk about all of them, and I still consider this basics for numerology, honestly. So another hour seems, hopefully this time will be enough to cover the rest of it.
Yeah, and then because I do apologize, this is the first time we've run into that, where we were gonna do mini readings, which I know is part of what people love to have, and we just don't have time for that because it took a lot to get about half of the information covered. And so next time we'll probably cover the second half of that information, like you were saying, and then we'll do some mini readings. And my only question for you is, do we want to wait till next Saturday? Is that best for you? I do have Monday night, Tuesday night, or Friday night. We could come back sooner. What do you, or we could decide later. You don't have to decide right this minute.
Well, I think that for now, unless something changes, I have Tuesday free as well, so we can do Tuesday because I have an opening on the day. But if something changes, I'll let you know. And by the way, I want to say that we actually did manage to cover by accident some people because, for example, Chaley was talking about her chart and she said that she's very like 5 dominant, and we did cover that quite a lot. So I think that a lot of people did actually get at least part 1 of their mini readings done by knowing what number they stand for and what vibration is the most prominent in their chart. And we covered you too, Kazri, by talking about what does the 1 mean in your life, right? How much you are a leader of your own group, and now also in the future the lady of real estate, right? The ruler of local real estate. Yeah. Important. So I think we kind of give people like enough to think of for starters, those who asked. And if somebody wants to get into more details, then I send the link for calculation of the solar numbers and all those details, and they can come to the next live stream with that information so they can tell us more about themselves. And if there's going to be someone else, we can only just do you as we did here, and and use you as an example, both you and me, to show you how that works exactly.
Cool. Well, I will point out that Jagoda does practice a lot of different things, and her Making Spirituality Real is her YouTube channel and probably your Instagram handle as well. Oh, and Linktree / Making Spirituality Real is a good place to find all of the things, because she's on all the places. And if you'd like to like and subscribe to my channel and Jagoda's channel, because we're streaming to both of those, that's always helpful. And we will come back if it's Tuesday. It would be after the forum, which the astrology forum, which is a Zoom, is from 5:30 till 6:30, and then there's a little bit of after party. If 7:30 works for you on Tuesday, we might do that, Jagoda.
Yeah, sure.
And then we'll still be back perhaps next Saturday at 5:30 as well for either more numerology. I do like to let it unfold naturally and just go where the winds take us. And just a couple other, whoops, I already said like and subscribe. Yeah, we could probably cut this pretty short for here, and I'll do some outro music and say
and
goodbye.
Don't speak, remember. Say nothing when the music is going, remember.
Oh, yes. No, I can't speak for 10 seconds because it garbles my mouth, my
exactly.
words. That's so annoying. But yeah, before I get that started, I will say thank you so much to everybody that came and asked questions and watched, and everybody watching on the replay. There'll be part 2, at least, if not part 3 of this numerology little mini series. Besides that, we're always going to be seeing Jagoda at least on a weekly basis going forward. But here comes the music. Thank you so much, everybody. We will, see you next time.